Thanks for coming today. Appreciate it. This is, again, another, I think, very powerful session in terms of our inaugural at Google Talk speaking series. It's a perfect movie day, so it seems highly appropriate to have a man who revolutionized the theater experience join us this morning. From my seat, at least, the Alamo Drafthouse took a concept that we all accepted as good enough and reinvented it so that it made everything else at that point seem obsolete. Sound familiar? Maybe like Apple or Google, Gmail or Maps or Offers or apps. So if a good movie starts with a good script, then let me offer the following scene. The desert spit a dry wind. The sunset, a star fell. Somewhere in the hills, a curtain rose, and on the screen it read, "Once upon a time, a movie palace died and decayed into a square, stale and routine annoyance devoid of the joy your parents felt, mesmerized under a flickering light with sweaty palms and the sticky sweetness of fountain soda through a squeaking straw." Then a stranger appeared. He looked at the audience and said, "No. No more compromises, no interference, just purity of essence." And maybe some beer, nachos, t-shirts in the lobby. I welcome that man to our house today, the man who dreamt, drafted, and directed a rebirth in the theater experience, Tim League, Alamo Drafthouse.
Hey. And I'm sorry if I slouch. I have kind of bad posture. My dad has bad posture. It's genetic. So just pretend like I'm standing straight, because eventually I'm going to slump forward a little bit. So anyway, I think I'm feeding back a little bit. Should I? Maybe I'll take that
Volume a little bit.
There. Is that okay? Hey, that's me. That's me and my wife. So I guess I want to start just by talking a little bit about the origin of Alamo Drafthouse Cinema. It actually, so it starts a few years before this picture. This picture was taken during week one of construction in 1996 when we were building our first theater on Colorado Street here in town. We were 26 years old and we had just moved to town. But I want to back up a little bit and talk about what brought me to the path to opening up a movie theater with my wife and not wearing a shirt. I should probably have a more respectable slide to start things off. I think it starts off when I was actually in high school. And I think a lot of people that are probably in this room had the same situation where you're good in math or you're good in science and then you take a certain career path and it puts you into an engineering, comp sci, technical background without any really forethought. And what it did for me was that it set me on a career path that I hadn't thought about. It set me the first step of moving into a career that I could have possibly retired from without any forethought whatsoever. So I'll go ahead and cue the next slide. I ended up taking a job with Shell Oil out of college. I got a mechanical engineering degree at Rice University. Again, just high school math. Yeah, hey, go Owls. So I worked as a facilities engineer, which meant I was 3 days out in the field doing maximization, optimization of oil field equipment from pump to pipeline. That was my role for an oil field in Los Angeles, southern Los Angeles, and Yorba Linda, actually home of Richard Milhous Nixon, for those who are fans of the man. And the first day that I got onto the job at Shell, I went through my employee training. They gave me the handbook and said, "Okay, well, you're about ready to start work, but one last thing, you got to go down to the basement and pick up your art." And I said, "Oh, okay, I don't even know what that statement means." So I went to the basement, and they had this vast warehouse of about 5,000 oil paintings of either landscapes or oil derricks. I think that was or flowers. Flowers, oil derricks, or landscapes. And so you're supposed to pick out the three that you like best for the three walls that didn't have a window, and that was how you decorated your office, and that's how everybody decorated their office. And that was such a alien and disturbing concept to me that I knew right there that I'd somehow, when I was back in high school and scored well in math, that I had made some sort of catastrophic error in judgment to land me at this spot. So I opted for an exit strategy. I worked at Shell for a couple of years, never stopped living like a student, so I just amassed every dime that I made, and I knew that I was going to do something else. I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do, so I'll go to the next slide. On my way to work was this 1947 single-screen Art Deco theater, and one day I saw a for lease sign, and I was on my way to work, saw the for lease sign, and then over the weekend had a casual conversation with a couple of friends over some beers at a bar, and then on Monday I went ahead and signed a lease to open up the Tejon Theater with really, it's a decision of I was 23 years old at the time, and it was a decision of a 23-year-old. I was stupid, completely inexperienced, and way, way, way out of my depth to try to do something like this. But, you know, I think about it now, and I don't think it's actually that much of a mistake in a way, because I did go through the analysis of, okay, worst case scenario, what's going to happen? Worst case scenario is I can go back to my job. I can find another job with another oil company or another engineering firm. I'll lose the $50,000 or so that I had amassed at that point, and no harm, no foul. I was completely unencumbered, didn't have any family, just had a girlfriend who thought the idea was absolutely stupid. So go ahead and go to the next slide. Arrogance and ignorance, yes. So that's sort of how I defined those days in Bakersfield. So not only was that, it was actually a beautiful theater on the inside, but it had been abandoned for a number of years. It was in Bakersfield. Is anybody from Bakersfield or filled up gas in Bakersfield? That's right, we did talk about, yeah. So top 20 markets that you would open up your first movie theater in, would Bakersfield come to mind?
Bakersfield sucks.
Yeah, well.
That's where I was born and raised.
We did actually reminisce about some of our favorite things about Bakersfield. I think both of us could show everybody in this room a tremendous weekend in Bakersfield, but then we would have shot it. That's what you got. Bakersfield's a good weekend town. But I was on the wrong side of the tracks in Bakersfield also. There were literally railroad tracks that divided the affluent and the poor side of Bakersfield. And being 23 years old at the time and having a lot more hair, that's me on the, whatever that is, the right, I said it doesn't matter. If we put on a great show, then the people are going to come and they're going to overcome their prejudices and not worry about where they're going. That was a complete that was a fallacy. It just didn't work out that way. So we opened up as it was a 1,000-seat theater. So we took out half of the seats and opened up as an art house theater. And most days we were hoping that nobody would show up so that we could have a night off, but ultimately like one or two people, one conscious decision would come and buy the $5, $7 movie ticket and come and sort of screw up our plans to get out of the theater. So we ran this place for 2 years, and it was a tremendous struggle. It was actually kind of depressing too, because we never left the building. We didn't have enough money to live anywhere else, so we just built pretty much the most depressing and squalid bedroom behind the screen of the movie theater, so there's no windows. And then sort of, yeah, it was terrible. And then insult to injury, the only thing that ever worked for us is we did live music as well, because it was a very big facility. But the only room that was suitable for a green room for the band was our bedroom. So, you know, we'd have mostly punk and metal shows come through town, and, you know, they want to just live up to the lifestyle somehow. So the thing that they do is, I don't know, just semi-trash our bedroom. So we'd you know, we'd spend the night, because we didn't really have any staff. We'd spend the night cleaning the theater. We'd come back and then come back to this green room that was smelled like, I don't know what, hookers and drugs and certainly alcohol. So that was our life for a couple of years. The way we ran it was just the two of us. It was eventually my wife, my girlfriend, was working in San Francisco. She was a molecular biology researcher and also followed the science path. And so I started this theater, and after a month, it was plain and simple that I was so over my head that I needed help. So I begged her to quit her job and come down and salvage what we could out of this enterprise. And you know, my parents were sort of pissed off about my decision to do what I had done, and her parents were, I think, exponentially pissed off about her decision. So we had both thrown away an expensive Rice University education and decided to do a completely trivial and possibly hopeless exercise. But she did it. She quit her job, she moved down, and she actually did save the theater. She got things in order. And so the two of us would be behind the concessions counter. She would be selling tickets, and I would be serving popcorn and whatever. And then when it came movie time, I would run upstairs, start the movie, and then run back downstairs and help sell popcorn. But thankfully, there was no customers, so that system worked out really, really well for a while. So, you know, one of the lessons there was this importance of the location. It's such a cliche when talking about business, but it really, really is true. So we knew at a certain point that we wanted to. This was untenable. We couldn't stay at the Tejon. That we had to go someplace else, and we knew when we went someplace else, we wanted to find just the right location. So go ahead to the next one. You know, I mentioned that we did. The movies really, they did not work for us. It really, literally was 2 to 10 people for every screening. We would only pay the bare minimum to the film distributors. But we did have success with concerts. This is a shot from the second to last Ramones tour. So we were able to, just because there's no other big venue that wanted to book that kind of show, we were able to book lots of things like this. Tool, the Ramones, Pennywise played, Los Lobos even played. But it was, that's the money that we amassed to get out of Bakersfield. And we'll go to the next slide. So this, I don't know if some people probably still remember, this is like a seminal classic of the modern era. It was Montel Jordan's This Is How We Do It. Does everybody remember that song? It's good, it's good. If this were a better presentation, we could all listen to the music video now, but it's not. We just have to imagine it in our head. So this was, in fact, the last straw that took us out of Bakersfield. So we agreed to do a concert with Montel Jordan, and it was right when that album hit, right when he was at the peak of his, 15 minutes. And it was such a lame concert because he only really had about 7 songs, so the concert was about 40 minutes long, 45 minutes long, and he played This Is How We Do It twice. So like, it was in the middle of the set, and then it was the encore. It was like, oh, man. But the unfortunate thing that happened that night is there was some sort of a lover's quarrel after the show, and somebody was driving away, and one of the members of that love triangle pulled out a gun and shot the guy that was driving away. So he shot him and killed him, and his car wrecked into our ticket booth. So the next morning, front page of the paper was this car, our ticket booth, our marquee. It's like, again, disproving the no such thing as bad press. It was like the worst conceivable press when we were struggling to convince people that it was safe to come over to cross the tracks and enjoy a nice movie. Then we just knew we were already struggling. We were not going to be able to overcome this. So we packed everything we had. We took the projectors, the screen, the speakers, 200 chairs, everything we could, and we put it in a truck and we came to Austin. So that's I guess I've got 2 slides where I'm not wearing a shirt. At least that one's small. So we came to Austin in 1996 to start over again. A lot of things we had done in Bakersfield were the origins for what we were going to try to do at the Austin location, but we were aiming a little bigger. But the problem is we didn't have any money. We had about $50,000 to $60,000 that we had pulled out of 2 years of hard scrabble work in Bakersfield, and that's not nearly enough. So this is our first space, which was at 409 Colorado. As you can see, that's week 1, where my wife is actually pulling out nails from the wood that we salvaged out of the building so that we could reuse it into the building. It was that kind of level of bootstrapping. So we assembled money, and we did this through a couple of ways. One, my wife's parents, now wife, I made good. She was no longer my girlfriend, now my wife. And her parents were still very skeptical about the idea since we had failed miserably and we're trying to start it again. But they actually agreed to mortgage their house for us. So they gave us $125,000 from a mortgage from their house. My parents did the same, sort of. It got us about $50,000. Did the stereotypical credit card loans. So we got about 70 grand from a variety of credit cards taken out on the same day. And I don't know if you can still do that. It was a great trick back in the 90s. So back when you had to mail in your credit application. And then the last one I think is the funniest bit. We got another $50,000 from Bank of America, but we were so not a good credit risk. We could not get a loan under any sort of normal circumstances. But that year, and that year alone, in the history of Bank of America, they had this thing called the Invest in America loan, which was a $50,000 small business startup, one-page form. You just signed it, and you basically got approval that day from the bank. And so we got it. We got $50,000 from Bank of America. But apparently we were of the 5% that paid back that loan at any time. So it was a tremendously abused loan that will never be seen again for Bank of America. But anyway, that's what we got. We had about $275,000. And in that space, Carrie and I built it ourselves. We had one guy that helped us with some of the more complicated things and the things where we weren't allowed, like setting the air conditioning units and getting the plumbing inspections. We did a lot of the rough plumbing and rough electrical, but we did everything else ourselves. So it was new electrical, new utility service in the alley, built the kitchen, built the restrooms, built the risers, built the projection room, all for about $200,000. Which I don't know, it's inconceivable to me this day. We did a minor renovation of the lobby at Village recently that cost $300,000. And it was nothing. So I don't know, we really, really, really scraped and did all of the work ourselves. The problem there, though, is it left us, end of the day, we had about $25,000 for working capital to start the business. Which, if the business had failed in the first month, then we wouldn't have known what to do. I guess we would have been crying back to our parents again to, invest good money after bad. So we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. That's the, I guess there's a little bit of a segue here, but that's the origin of the Alamo and the how we got to the first location. And I do think that when I'm talking to people that are entrepreneurs or thinking about doing their own business, what I mentioned earlier about really doing a hard assessment of what is the worst case scenario and can you be comfortable with the worst case scenario was a very valuable exercise. And I think even when we were doing the theater in Austin, not just the Bakersfield Theater, we did that exercise again. And we knew that we were taking this money from our parents, but we had assured them that if this time it didn't work, that we would go back into engineering, research, and work out a payment plan and get them their money back. So even then, it really wasn't the end of the world, and we felt like it was worth it to risk it. Because by that hard Scrabble work for 2 years and ultimately failing in Bakersfield, we learned a lot of things. We learned how to be very, very frugal. We knew exactly where every dime was in our organization, and we learned how to just do things ourselves and find a cheaper alternate route. Ultimately, obviously, we've grown in size. We now have 10 locations. We've got 2 under construction, and we do have plans to open in some other cities. We should be making an announcement about New York and San Francisco theaters soon, relatively soon. We have spots identified, and hopefully by first couple weeks in January we can make that public. The idea is just to sort of grow the concept and experience of what we've been trying to do here in Austin to other cities that don't have it. I guess I'll go into what I think some of the core values is one of those terms like mission statement where some people sort of frown on it, and well, we went through an exercise to go through it, and I've become comfortable with what previously might have been sort of a questionable idea. Those words sometimes, they still actually sort of prickle a little bit at the base of my spine. But I do think it's really, really important to know, who you are, why you're doing what you're doing, and what's important to you. So we went through a process and came up with, I think, some core values. So I'm going to cycle through some of those real quick. Next slide. There we go. There we go. Fun experts. This is Zach Carlson, who works for us. And I'm not sure what that is. I hope that that's not a baby. I don't know what that is. I don't know. Let's just pretend it's a piece of meat. Anyway, but that's Zach Carlson. So he's one of the guys that has joined the programming department at the Alamo. The way he came to the company is he volunteered to, because he was such a movie fan, to join us on our nationwide outdoor movie screening tour. He has worked at a video store, Scarecrow Video, up in Seattle, which is the biggest video store in the world. It employs a lot of obsessive compulsives like Zach. Recently he actually published a book called Destroy All Movies, which is a compendium of every single appearance of a punk rock character in cinema from 1978 to 1990. It's 5,000 reviews of movies with in-depth interviews with the titans of punk rock on film. So he's a guy that there is no other job for him. He has to be programming at the Alamo Drafthouse because there's no other life skills that he's got other than just the sheer unadulterated joy and love of kind of weird cinema. So we have a programming and creative office of about 15 people. A lot of them, they're not necessarily like Zach, but I think we try to hire obsessive movie fans. Well, before I talk about my mom, that's my mom. The fun experts, I want to explain what that meant. We do a 8-day film festival in the fall of horror, science fiction, fantasy movies called Fantastic Fest. We had a Spanish filmmaker, not even a native speaker, come up to me, and he's been at the festival every year since his first feature debuted in 2007. He's come back to the festival just as a fan every year since. He's like, Tim, I figured it out. You guys are experts in the underappreciated art of having fun. And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna turn that into a slide in a PowerPoint presentation. So, all right, onto my mom. So this is my mom, and this slide is actually perfectly positioned because she's sort of staring at me, right? So maybe not judgingly, maybe a little bit judgingly, I'm not sure. But I use my mom as a barometer. I think a lot of people misunderstand the identity of the Alamo and think that sometimes it's just a cult movie place, or that's what we're all about. But for me, it's the idea of inclusivity. I want my mom to be comfortable every time she comes to the theater. So it means death metal shouldn't be playing on the radio at the box office, and even if our staff has more tattoos and piercings than she's normally used to, they should also have a smile and be really nice and friendly to her. So that's just in general. She's my sort of rudder and making sure that the business is still on track in that regard. Go to the next one. We also I guess always trying to do something a little bit better. This is a guy we just recently brought on, Bill Norris. He's sort of the Austin celebrity bartender, but he's now the director of beverage for Alamo Drafthouse. He was reaching a point in his career where he's, like myself, early 40s, but it was closing down bars at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I think I caught him at a good time where he was just weary at where he was. He's built a great reputation for being an exceptional, he hates the word mixologist, bartender, and was ready to take a new step. So he came on with us, and his job now is just to make sure that every beverage that we serve is awesome. And he also runs the cocktail program at Highball, and we're opening up a tequila bar as part of our new, Slaughter Lane down on South Mopac, and a couple other things for us. But I think the idea is that where we recognize, well, maybe we're not doing this quite well enough, or there's other people that impress us, so we want to always try to surpass them by bringing in new people and lending focus to areas where there's room for improvement. There's always room for improvement. As you guys know, at Google, I mean, everything changes on the technology side of things just way too fast, and we feel like we have to stay on top of the curve. I'm sure that you guys have that pressing desire to stay on top of the curve as well. Or maybe you're just setting the curve. I don't know. Whatever. But anyway, so I'll go ahead and go to the next one. I was struggling for a picture when I was putting this together. I'm I'm going to go ahead and brave it and say it. I don't like Stevie Ray Vaughan. I should stop saying it because most of the time it creates awkwardness because he's such an iconic figure of this town. But anyway, he is an iconic figure of this town. But I don't like him. But that has nothing to do with what our aspect of community is. We like to think. Do you have a question about Stevie Ray Vaughan? I do like that building. Our law firm is there, but I like it because every time I go up to it, it reminds me of My Neighbor Totoro, that Miyazaki movie. I don't know. So I think it's the most beautiful building in downtown. So sure, I'm a fan. All right, I'll crop out Stevie Ray and I'll just put the tower. So we like to think of ourselves as a neighborhood movie theater, and I think it happened inadvertently when we weren't thinking about it. When we literally were a mom and pop theater back in Bakersfield and at the 409 Colorado space. It was my wife and I. We were there every day. We did the same thing we were doing in Bakersfield, but we had a small staff. But we knew all of our regular customers. We introduced the shows personally. We answered our customer feedback personally. And I think that just sort of set the tone. And now as we're expanding, we're trying to make sure that that never gets lost. Both the idea of giving back to the community, being available to the community for nonprofit events and fundraisers, but then also having the sense that we are a part of and responsible to the neighborhood that's immediately around us. And then the last one is that we want to be credible. And I bring this up, not that like this gang of dudes is not credible, but there was a period in time where I had stepped away from the Alamo Drafthouse to a certain extent. We had started a franchise company, but really had no concept of what that meant and what the obligations to the people that we were working with in a franchise relationship, what that was. So we were, again, in over our head. So we decided to ostensibly sell the business. So back about 6 years ago, we sold Alamo Drafthouse, but retained ownership of the theaters in town, the Village, South Lamar, and the Downtown Theater, and just focused our energies on those theaters. And that's when we really got a sense of what the brand was, and some of our specialty programming really grew in those years, and that's when we started the festival. At the same time, that other company was developing other locations, and our vision was starting to spread. Like there was an Alamo Drafthouse that we shepherded that was this. There was an Alamo Drafthouse that we didn't have any involvement with this. And we were both just fighting. And it became worse and worse and worse and worse. And then ultimately, we both realized that the best thing to do would be to shake hands, settle our differences, and smash everything back together so there's one vision, one brand, one identity. And that happened about 1 year and 3 months ago. And it's been actually great. But I bring up this slide, and I probably can't do this in any internal Alamo talks along this. I'll have to change the slide out. But one of the things that drove me crazy during that period was this issue of credibility. Whereas we had invested in guys like Zach Carlson and really hardcore, obsessive movie guys, the other locations had not. And so it was evident in some of the programming. And this is the one that was almost like that last straw for me. There was an event that we've been doing for years and years and years called Spaghetti Western Spaghetti Feast, where classic spaghetti westerns with all-you-can-eat spaghetti. Very simple, very silly concept, but it always worked, at least for the non-obscure spaghetti westerns. So it was one of the outside of Austin locations put together a show called Spaghetti Western Spaghetti Feast with Young Guns. I said, not on my watch is that ever going to happen ever again, because that, my friend, is not a spaghetti western. So, so anyway, that's basically what I'm trying to say with a long and rambly story, is that it's very important that if we're going to put our name on something, that somebody can't, sneer at us and think that we don't get it. So the decisions in terms of what we do and how we do it, we have to be able to stand behind those decisions. So that's it for the, that's it for our quote-unquote core values. And then I think the last thing I want to do is just run through a couple of the folks on the Alamo team. I think probably the first slide is probably that Zach Carlson slide again. So if it is, we'll cycle past him because you've already met Zach. No, I think I might have taken him out. Yeah, sort of say no like that. So we do have a big creative staff. This is Henry Mazza, who runs the creative department. He runs all the action-packed stuff and the sing-alongs, quote-alongs, and also kind of oversees a lot of the programming at the Highball as well. So Henry started as a food runner, kind of lowest on the totem pole, moved to waiter, and then at a certain point we wanted to cross-train him because we thought he was really clever and fun, had some really good ideas. I was like, hey, would you like to cross-train to be in the kitchen? He's like, well, I'd actually technically like to cross-train to be an owner. And so that's pretty good for a 24-year-old kid who's been on with us for a year as a waiter. But ultimately, I liked a lot of his ideas. He started programming on his own and hired him to be the first member of the creative staff. And now he oversees the group of 20 and also is helping the other markets develop their own creative staff under our model. Next one. Oh, that's Zach. You know Zach. We'll just move on to the next one. This is Lars Nilsson, and he came to the Alamo similar way. So we do a show every Wednesday called Weird Wednesday, which is used to be free. Now it's $1 or $2 screenings of 35 millimeter 70s and 80s exploitation movies, kind of sleazy movies, but it's a genre film that I hold very dear. Whoops, sorry about that. And so does Lars. So I became friends with him just as a patron. I used to host that show and curate the show and pick out the movies. And so eventually, this is a long time ago, this is 11 years ago, he would start bringing VHS tapes to the theater with a pre-show that he had made on his own. He said, hey, Tim, this is a collection of clips that I think really suits the movie, and this is what you should probably play for this. And it's like, oh, okay, that's great. So he would do that for a few months, and then I'd pass the reins. He started programming the series, and then he started introducing all the shows, and then a friend of mine had to tell me that point out that Lars actually, in fact, was working for me, but I wasn't paying him anything. So I rectified that. He's the guy that was the first employee to handle the Alamo pre-show, which is the video montage and clips that happens before the movie. And we have a full-time staff employee that does that work for us. So no advertisements is as one of our, it's not really a core value, but it's what we do at the theater. And not only that, not only do we ignore the revenue stream of the advertisements, we go deeper in the hole by having a full-time staff member to create that content. So, go ahead. This is Andrew McKeithrin, who was a college student that I met back in 1999. He was the technical, at the time he was a college student, he was technical coordinator for South by Southwest. He was also head of all of the projection for Cinemark in the area. And I used to handle a lot of the technical side of the projection room back when we were a lot smaller, and we bonded because we were able to talk about gears and nuts and bolts and all that sort of thing. But he was working for Cinemark, and they were paying him such an abysmal wage that I said, wow, that's really not a lot of money. I can give you 50% more, and you can come work for me, which really wasn't a lot of money at the time either. But he came on board, worked for us part-time while he was in college, and has continued for the last 8 years after college. Overseas, he was computer science, so he did database development for South by Southwest. So he handles all of our IT execution as well as the projection side. He's got a team under him now. The next one. And this is another interesting obsessive-compulsive orphan that's on our team. Justin moved down. I knew him because we collect old film. Justin was a 23-year-old film collector in Kansas City. He moved down to Alamo. We got him a job as a bartender. It's kind of a crappy bartender. And then we moved him over to projection. He wasn't that great at projection. So we moved him over to the outdoor movie Rolling Roadshow, where he proved to be not able to shine so well. And then we moved him over to venue rental to see if he could do something there, and quickly realized that wasn't his calling either. So on his fifth shot, we moved him into taking over Mondo, which is our sort of boutique poster company. And that's where we finally found a spot where this is the guy. And he dug in and he created something really special that wasn't a part of the company before. So I don't know how many people know about Mondo, but it's they're highly sought after, limited edition art posters for movies. You can see a few behind them in the background there for nerdy properties for the most part. It's been a huge year for Mondo. There's been articles about them in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. They've also been the only company outside of the studio system that has their posters now archived at the American, MPA, Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. So every single Mondo poster is archived. Go ahead and go to the next one. And this is Mike. Mike came to us. He was the head of operations for all of Trudy's. He came to us from Trudy's. What's important, I've talked a lot about the passion, but this goes back to that early lessons of the first days of having a very clear eye on what the numbers are. So Mike does a lot of statistical analysis. We look at our revenue numbers and our expense numbers on a daily basis, and we also look at our customer satisfaction numbers, our sort of net promoter score, and it's those indices of how well we're doing that everybody in the company is bonused by. The managers know that they have to make sure that our guests are happy and that they come back and they want to come back, they're excited to come back. So that's the man that does that. You know that guy already. Yeah, he makes really good drinks. And then John Bullington is our head of cuisine. He came to us from Mars Restaurant years and years ago. At the time, Mars was voted best restaurant in Austin. And we had to really convince him that moving to a place that served pizzas and burgers and cranked out a lot of them in a really fast amount of time was something he wanted to do. But we also give him a lot of freedom to express his sort of chefy side of things too. And so I have a few slides of, I think, a few things that he's done over the years. I'll just cycle through those real quick. Oh, no, I took those out. All right, never mind. So anyway, but John does these feast events, Lord of the Rings feast event, where there's a different meal every 2 hours for your 12-hour experience. It's a gargantuan amount of food. The very, very first thing that he ever did for us is he's a big fan of the movie Ishtar, so he did a 5-course feast built around the movie Ishtar of Moroccan food. So every month and a half or so, we'll do a high-end food and film themed event that John curates. And he does a lot of community outreach too. He brings students in to learn about the kitchen. He does mock interviews for them to help with the Texas Culinary Academy, and just is given the freedom to do some crazy, wacky things. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next. The other thing that we like to do at the Alamo is try to go over the top when we possibly can. This was for the premiere of Iron Man, where it was really cute. This guy is a guy that flies over stadiums in a jetpack for whatever reason. That's his job. But he was so excited about being perceived as Iron Man that he handmade this little felt Iron Man costume. I thought it was one of the cutest things ever. So anyway, so that's one of the things we've done. Go ahead to the next one. This was an event we did for the remake of Amityville Horror. Ryan Reynolds was coming into town, and so in order to get a chance to meet Ryan Reynolds and hang out at the screening, he had to walk through the House of Flies. So we found that I don't know why, but on the internet you can buy fly larvae that can hatch into flies. So I bought a box of 20,000 flies, and the problem was I failed to really understand the instructions. I let it sit for a little bit too long before I opened it, and the box was like literally shaking, and so I went into this House of Flies with an X-Acto knife, and I knew this was going to be a horrible thing, and so I had the eye goggles on, like a hoodie pulled tight, and I just sliced the box open, and this wave of flies just flew into my face, and I had an X-Acto knife, and I just like sort of, I don't know what I did, but I started flailing and completely like lacerated my hand open, so I just ran out of the House of Flies, bleeding and screaming, but anyway, it worked. Eventually it worked. So if you're going to buy flies, I guess the lesson here is if you're going to buy flies on the internet, read the instructions as to when they're actually going to hatch. Okay, go to the next slide. This was an event for the unfortunate box office disappointment of Nacho Libre. Everybody was really expecting it to be awesome after Napoleon Dynamite. It was okay, but the studio agreed to finance this show that we put together where we brought in Lucha Libre wrestlers from Mexico City, some of them midgets, some of them full size. So they dragged me into the ring, and they didn't speak English, and so I was just sort of following along. It's like, okay, so you want to hold my arms back like this? And I was like, okay, you're going to hit me in the chest with a 2x4. I've always wanted to know what that is, how you do that trick, because it looks so convincing. And so apparently the way that you do that trick is the guy holds your arms back, and the guy on the ground hits you really hard in the chest with a 2x4. And I had this crazy, like, I guess 3.25 inch bruise across my chest for about 2 weeks. So I don't know, but it's fun. I'll go ahead and go to the next one. And I don't know why, but it's Ryan Reynolds, I guess, likes to come into town. So this is, again, a stunt for Ryan Reynolds' Buried, which came out last year. It's last year? I think it's last year, yeah. Supremely underrated movie. I really love this film. It all takes place inside of a coffin. Ryan Reynolds is buried either in Iraq or Afghanistan and has a phone and is trying to find a way to get out of this box. So we staged a contest for people to volunteer to watch the ultimate Buried experience, where we met them at the theater, blindfolded them, took them in a van out into the country, where we had dug 4 shallow graves and built 4 coffins that had LCD monitors built into the top of them. So and then we buried them. So it was the screening, like supposed to be the ultimate Buried screening, like put yourself inside the movie. And so we did that, and it was an idea. I saw the movie at Sundance as an idea that my friend and I had, and we said, "Oh, there's no way this is going to pass legal." But we went ahead and sent it over to the studio, and I don't know if legal was just caught them on a day where they were not paying attention or whatever. But they said, "Yeah, sure, no problem, do it," provided that we assumed the liability, which we did. It really wasn't that dangerous. We tested it all out. There was airflow systems, and there was paramedics on hand, and we had cameras monitoring them. So anyway, but it was a fun event. It was good. What's that? Well, they were buried for the whole movie. They had to watch the movie inside the coffin. So for each of them were buried for 90 minutes while they watched Buried. Yeah. Yeah, we made it actually extra special for, there was a little tube, so when sand would come into Ryan Reynolds' coffin, we'd dump sand into their coffin. Not a lot, just a little, just to give them a taste. But, so go ahead and move on. So the other thing we do is we take the Alamo on the road. We do famous movies in famous places. We've been doing this for the last 7 years. We've done Jaws at Martha's Vineyard. This is Close Encounters at Devil's Tower. Done Escape from Alcatraz on Alcatraz. So every year we try to go crazier and crazier. We've pitched this idea. I haven't told anybody this yet, but one I really want to do is similar to we did Buried. And it's like, oh, well, what could be even more traumatic than Buried? So what we're going to try to do is get our insurance carrier to cover us for the screening of watching Jaws in shark-infested waters in a shark tank, if we can figure out how to do that. So that may be part of the next roadshow tour this summer. It's been pitched. I don't know. We'll see. Totally safe. We take every safety precaution here at the Alamo. We'll go ahead and go to the next one. And there's John doing one of his skills at Fantastic Fest. I mentioned it before, but this is a festival that focuses on horror, science fiction, and fantasy, things that our programming team really loves. So John always likes to do something special for the closing night party. This is a 700-pound cow that he sort of butterflied and roasted on an open fire for 22 hours. That's really sort of a visceral way to eat a steak. And so he's just carving it off for the attendees. And I think we've just got a couple more slides, but we've started to branch out and consider the Alamo as a more of a entertainment brand, if you will. And so we started a film distribution company. It's going to be in full swing in 2012. We're going to try to release 6 new movies and 6 classic old movies a year. This was our first one that we did as sort of beta test. It's called Four Lions. Ended up, Time Magazine called it one of the 10 best films of the year in 2010. We were able to get it, I think, because we're drawn to movies that we're really passionate about, but also maybe have something a little bit wrong with them. And so what's wrong about this one is that it's a jihadi suicide bomber comedy. And at the time, tensions were high around this particular issue. So I think even though it was directed by really a legend of comedy in the UK, Chris Morris, a lot of distributors that we thought would have bought it were afraid that perhaps maybe a jihad would be called against them for doing such a blasphemous thing. But it's actually, in fact, not blasphemous. He's very, very respectful to the religion. And what he was trying to point out is how certain types of oblivious youth get drawn to movements like this in the UK, and sort of drawing out the stupidity of the people that would sign up to be a suicide bomber. So that's what it's about. It's a good film. I like it. But so we're gonna pick movies that we love, and maybe movies that have some issues like this one to push out there and try to support and nurture in 2012. And that brings us to the last thing. Greg wanted me to talk a little bit about our little viral sensation this year, which was a lot of fun. So what happened was at the Village Theater, one of our customers was kicked out for texting, and despite her disjointed claims in her subsequent voicemail, she was texting at her seat and refused to acknowledge the warning to stop to do it, and so our policy is to kick that person out without a refund. It's been a policy we've had since the very, very early days. It wasn't since day one. It was actually, the policy came out during a screening of Blue Velvet at midnight at the original location, where it came with like a free Pabst Blue Ribbon at the door, and people just started drinking probably too much Pabst Blue Ribbon, and it just got out of control and made me sick to my stomach, and I was like, this is not what I signed up for. We don't have controls in place to take care of these people. And so it was after that screening that we instituted the policy back in '97, and we've taken it very seriously ever since. We've kicked out a lot of people. Probably about 100 people a year we kick out of the theater without a refund. And hopefully, the lesson is that they're not welcome at the Alamo until they can change their behavior, and then they're a guest again. So this one voicemail came through. Our manager sent it to us because our voicemail comes in through MP3. Said, "Hey, check this out. This would make a really funny Don't Talk PSA." And we agreed and cut something together. And we cut it to just put up on screen. And at the same time, when we put it up on screen, we posted it on YouTube. We've been doing that for the last year or so. When we do a new Don't Talk PSA, we post it on YouTube as well. So Roger Ebert, I think, was the first guy that saw it. And we had engaged in dialogue with him about digital projection because he had gotten up on a soapbox, and we became part of that dialogue with him. And I think subsequently started following our feeds. And so he reposted it, and when he did that, it started posting at a whole bunch of other sites. And we had never been through anything like this, so it was clear that something had gone wrong because our website was 100% shut down, because people were linking back to our blog post. So Andrew, our IT guy, figured out very, very quickly how to host that page in the cloud, and also, and get our website back, because once the website controls everything for us, we have close to 70% of our ticket sales are online. So when the website goes down, it's very devastating for us. So we got it working again, and then by the end of the day, the numbers had spiked up to 2.5 million views on this clip, and they ultimately went up to 5.5 million views. But the following day, it got picked up by some serious news outlets. Howard Stern picked it up that day. But the best one was Anderson Cooper played it that night. So his people called us. We got some interviews set, and he did kind of an interesting overview of the piece. And so I think we have the Anderson Cooper clip, if you can switch that over. Because he not only shows the clip, but breaks it down in a very Anderson Cooper way. And
okay.
He lumps on some unworthy praise, but we're going to totally take it anyway.
Where's my, how do we get out of the full screen with this shortcut? I gotta find her.
Did you do it?
Nothing. Go ahead.
Well, okay. You just do that's to get on full screen.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, and I have that clip right here.
Well, in case you're wondering where he is, he's on the road, so let's see.
All right. Thanks very much. Aisha, time now for the ridiculous. Tonight we're adding my latest source of annoyance, people who talk and text at the movies. And I want to talk about one young woman in particular, a woman who was repeatedly warned to stop texting during a movie in Austin, Texas, wouldn't stop, and was promptly thrown out of the theater. Then she left an angry voicemail for the theater, which is posted on its blog for your enjoyment.
No, that wasn't supposed to text in your little crappy theater.
All right. Did I mention that the theater is called the Alamo Draft House and that they serve beer? Well, I'm not sure if I mentioned that, but indeed, I think our texter may have partaken a bit, a little pre-party during the previews, perhaps. Listen to her next defense.
So excuse me for using my phone in USA, United States of America, where you are free to text in a theater.
I love living in the Magnited States of America where you are free to text in a theater. Now, that's a lady who knows her Constitution. What's all that freedom jazz about if some drunk girl can't constantly update her Facebook status while people are trying to concentrate on Kung Fu Panda 2? Next, the text lady employs something I like to call the silent but deadly defense.
And it was on silent. It wasn't on loud. It wasn't bothering anybody. You guys obviously were being assholes to me.
I'm sorry, drunk girl, but texting in a dark movie theater is like lighting a road flare. People are going to see it. You might not through your beer goggles, but everyone else will. Drunk girl didn't give up, though. She's been hitting the law books, apparently, and comes up with two more arguments for her defense. A combo of the I didn't know defense, seasoned with just a touch of the I do it everywhere else defense.
I was not aware that I couldn't text in your theater, all right? I've texted in all the other theaters in Austin, and no one ever gave a about what I was doing on my phone, all right?
Now, maybe she has texted her way through every other movie theater in Austin. I wouldn't be surprised. But as it turns out, this particular theater has a well-known zero-tolerance policy against talking and cell phones. It's kind of this theater's crusade, and they have all kinds of creative announcements about it. Watch.
I keep a electric cattle prod with me, so I'll just, if I hear someone talking, I'll give them just not an aggressive shock, but just a light shock.
My name is Pedro Sanchez from Napoleon Dynamite. If you vote for me, I'll make sure that everyone is very quiet in the theater.
Don't talk during the movies. Turn off your cell phones and beepers, please.
You can find out who they are and then go cut their tongue out.
So I think it's pretty clear where the Alamo Draft House stands on this issue. And you know what? Maybe a theater with that kind of policy just isn't for everyone.
You know, I will never be coming back to your Alamo Draft House or whatever. I'd rather go to a regular theater where people are actually polite.
Oh yeah, the regular theater are full of polite people, politely shouting at the screen, politely bringing screaming toddlers to rated R movies at 11 o'clock at night, politely talking and texting through the whole movie. The CEO of the Alamo Draft House says he wants his theater to be different. Here's Tim League, great American hero.
We wanted to take a hard stand and say that those people are not welcome at the Alamo Draft House. So we'll get rid of those people and just make it a better place for the rest of the movie-going public.
I think that guy should win the Nobel Peace Prize. So listen up, Magnited States. Newsflash, a movie theater, it's not your living room, so don't act like it is. We're paying to see the movie, not your cell phone light, and we want to listen to the actors, not your lame comments and inane chatter. Next time you're about to text in a film, remember the Alamo Draft House, or you might end up at the ridiculous. More news ahead in the next hour. We'll be right back.
So that was some pretty good press, I gotta say. So anyway, that was a crazy wild adventure, and that's the last thing that I've got on my little presentation today. But you know, if anybody has any questions about anything, please feel free to fire them away. Well, the girl, we had a lot of things queued up for those type of Maury Povich type of shows where they wanted a showdown that might have ended up in chairs thrown and things like that, which I would have totally been down for, but actually never happened. The only thing she did was she went on to KVET in the morning and said that she wanted to stay anonymous, but she was still pretty mad and pretty feisty on KVET. They, they had a little fun with her, and that's the only appearance she had. I think she was savvy enough to know that if she were to come out and be identified, then it would not have been a good thing for her.
So there's been kind of a lot of copycat people who are doing the dinner and movie type thing. Studio Movie Grill being one that's kind of aggressively opening shops across the nation. Do you see that as a good thing because it's introducing people to the concept? And does that make it easier for you to expand? Or do you think that it's kind of tarnishing the whole brand of what you're doing?
I'm somewhere in the middle. It doesn't really matter to me what we keep tabs on everybody. I think it's the never satisfied concept that we want to know what everybody's doing, and occasionally we'll say, oh wow, that's actually really great. I wish we would have thought of that, and then we'll steal that idea. So I mean, like when Flix comes into town, we'll our whole team, we've got logs of information of our visits to Flix, what we like, what we didn't like. We've been to Studio Movie Grill a lot of times. So I think our role is just to try to execute better. We're certainly the only type of this concept that does any type of interesting programming. Most of those other concepts are just like a regular movie theater, but they have different food offerings, different concessions offerings. So more power to them. So we're gonna expand where we want to expand, and it doesn't matter what they do.
And then one other thing, when in the 90s when I first heard about the Draft House, it was kind of through the ramblings of Harry Knowles. Is it just a coincidence that the Draft House and Ain't It Cool News started at the same time, or were you guys kind of in cahoots before either of those things started?
It was coincidence. So, I mean, we really did start almost at the exact same time. And Harry, along with Rick Linklater, who's in town, were both guys that initially, when we opened up, were very, very skeptical, because for a true cinephile, the idea of having this added disturbance of food service in a movie theater is really an offensive idea. And so we had to prove to both of those guys. And Harry, I remember very distinctly the first movie Harry ever came to was we did a screening of the blaxploitation film Superfly. It came with a free 40-ounce malt liquor. It was this crazy, over-the-top promotion, and he wrote this long, expansive essay about how much he loved that experience. And I didn't know who he was, and somebody had to point out the website to me. And the next time he came in, we shook hands, became friends, and we've just been, we like a lot of the same movies. So we actually became businessmen together. His site grew at the same time that we were growing.
Could someone just walk around with the... Go ahead in the back, Josh.
Working with big licensed brands has been certainly an evolution. It's easier now that we're established and people know what Mondo is. People actually start coming to us to say, we'd like to do this. And honestly, Star Wars was the first big license that we bought, and it was a big check. And so writing that check was very speculative, but it ended up being really great for us. So it's a little bit frustrating sometimes, because there's a lot of those, Star Wars in particular is very picky about what goes out. So there's actually a lot of Star Wars designs that are awesome, but maybe a little bit outside the wheelhouse of how they want Star Wars represented. And so those will never be posters. They're just conceptual drawings at this point. So you have to work through that process. But in general, it hasn't been too bad. The ground rules are laid out that, it's Mondo basically that's driving the creative process, and they don't take input from the studio. If the studio doesn't like it, then they will scrap it and do something else, but they're not going to tweak it to the whims of the studio. They are what they are. They have final cut, I guess, if you will. And then the artists, it's Ollie Moss and Tyler Stout are two of our biggest artists that we work with, but Tyler Stout was unknown. Like, he became famous through the Mondo poster series. So because he got a lot more work coming out of us, he's done stuff for Adidas and Nike and bigger paying jobs than what we can afford at this point. But he's always happy to come back, A, because he's a movie fan, and it's a really satisfying work for him to do, but also because we've been with him since the very beginning.
Okay, 2 more questions, and then Tim, you pick. Go ahead.
Duke, I don't know. Here we go. Right here. Sorry. The green shirt. Okay. Oh no. I keep on telling myself I have to prepare for this question. Top 3 movies?
Top 3 favorite movies.
What are my top 3 favorite movies? I'm very. It changes a lot. I just saw The Muppets last week, so The Muppets is my favorite movie of all time. I don't know. I really liked it. I don't know. I came in, I hated all those fake trailer ads that they did, so I came in with really low expectations, but I cried in the middle when he's in with all the portraits, and I just thought it was like the perfect mix of nostalgia and I had a smile on my face. I like some kind of weirdo, obscure movies that, because I still program Fantastic Fest. I'm the head of programming, so what I watch is a lot of foreign genre film. There's a movie you can get on Amazon, actually, that's called Adam's Apples, which nobody's seen, but it's from a Danish director. It's where Mads Mikkelsen got his start with this director. Just this perfect mix of inappropriate comedy and violence and more inappropriateness and awkwardness. I think it's a great film. I'll give a unabashed plug for Draft House Films. So we're buying movies that we love. We bought a movie out of the festival this year called Bullhead, which is a first-time Belgian director. But it actually, after we bought it, it was Belgium's choice for Academy Award Best Foreign Language Film, and it ended up on a variety shortlist. So it might be conceivable that this film ends up being one of the 5 films for Best Foreign Language Film for this year. I don't know, fingers crossed. But it's this crazy story, sort of a early Scorsese-ish film about a guy who's addicted to testosterone, runs this meat processing facility, and there's this illegal steroids subplot that goes through it, and also this very heartfelt, heart-crushing romantic storyline. So I like a lot of movies like that that are complicated, really well acted, a story that you haven't seen before, fresh and original. But then I like really stupid movies like Teen Lust is really fun movie from the 80s, so you should probably not check out. Shouldn't have said that. Okay. Next question.
Last question.
In the back.
I guess mine's following the same lines with favorite movies, except I'm more or less asking what's your favorite worst movies. I'm a big Mystery Science Theater fan. Kind of grew up on that stuff, so I kind of see a lot of similarities in that. I guess I'll give you an example of mine first. I love Manos, The Hands of Fate, and Santa Claus Conquers the Martians.
Those are both very fine films, yeah. Manos is apparently getting a restoration next year. Yeah, there's one guy that's obsessively doing it on his own outside of the studio system. So we might be able to see the ultimate Manos, Hands of Fate next year. We'll see.
Suggestion, could you just buy all the Mystery Science Theater?
I'll put it in the idea hopper. I mean, I am drawn. Like it's tough because I'm not such a big fan of the idea of so bad it's good. I like to think of those movies as people that are earnestly trying to make the best movie possible. It's just they might have been dropped on their head as a child, or like they just did something not quite right in their makeup. I really don't like the movies that are holier than thou. They're going to willfully make something campy or bad. That rings false to me. But I do love exactly what you're talking about. So some favorites of mine that strangely I can answer that question better than my favorite movies. I like this movie called Dangerous Men by John Rad, who it came out about 5 years ago. but he had been working on it for a decade. He was Persian, came to the United States, and apparently made 300 movies in Iran. Came here and made this action movie in Los Angeles, in four-walled theaters in Los Angeles, and it's just this absurd mess, but very lovable. I like Troll 2, you know, which had the documentary about best worst movie. We were big champions of that film. I like a lot of 80s straight to VHS stuff that some of my team knows a lot better, and they've been introducing me to some of the classics. But a movie called Deadly Prey, which is kind of like a First Blood type of movie, but seemingly shot in somebody's backyard with this really muscle-bound guy in cutoff shorts. It's pretty good. So anyway, we could have a longer conversation about that if you like. But I guess that's the last question. So anyway, I want to thank you guys for taking part of your day to hang out.
So we have a nice tradition of being able to offer our speakers for 4 hours of time a $8 T-shirt.
Right on.
But it's very special because it actually identifies you as a speaker here, and there's
Nice.
only like 3 people who have this so far. So there
Fantastic.
you go.
Thank you. I will
Thanks
wear it
again.
with pride.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.